2021. Okay. What I'm going to try and show you is something. What I'm going to try and show you is something. What I'm going to try and show you is something. What I'm going to try and show you. That's the hacking my phone, but I'm going to try and do this. I've got to find where it was. I've got a message about to watch it and to share it if I can, so I'll have to go and see where I saved this video, and I'm going to show the red sun where somebody caught this, so I'll have to go into the Awaken World Faith YouTube channel. I think I've saved it. I've got to check. So most Smith, if you hear this eventually, I am trying to find where it was that I watched it. The gaming email, and I was trying to find it. I know I saved it. I have to go and email again to find the link. Right. Bloody heck. Where was it? I know you emailed it. Right. Oh, hi. Nappy Life stopped. Yeah, I think so. It was buffering. I was watching it and putting posts in, and I sent you. I'm trying. No, excuse me. I'm trying to find the link that you sent me. I've got someone else being targeted in my town actually. A quick email. Just to get back quickly and a lot of stuff. Yeah, so it he did a bloody good job, mind you, Nappy. He had a megaphone out, and then I think there's a few new people that's come in to his chat. I don't know if they've been before, so I put my penny's worth in, and I'd just said, well, I just said this is demonic. It's just kept it simple. I said I've been in this program since a child. Reference to a website in Nappy's chat that might help people with links as well. So yeah, I'm just trying to find one about the red sun. No, I can't type back in the chat at the moment. Okay, right. I'm now looking for. Just have it. I have got it. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Got it, May.
Again across Kansas City. However, wildfire smoke that continues to just kind of hang around the middle of the country, it's really setting up for a nice surprise out there. very red sun in all of that wildfire smoke as we look out towards the east along 31st Street. Once again across Kansas City. However, wildfire smoke that continues to just kind of hang around the middle of the country, it's really setting up for a nice sunrise out there. Very red sun in all of that wildfire smoke as we look out towards the east along 31st Street. Once again across Kansas City. However, wildfire smoke that continues to just kind of hang around the middle of the country, it's really setting up for a nice sunrise out there. Very red sun in all of that wildfire smoke as we look out towards the east along 31st Street. Once again across Kansas City. However, wildfire smoke that continues to just kind of hang around the middle of the country, it's really setting up for a nice sunrise out there. Very red sun in all of that wildfire smoke as we look out towards the east along 31st Street. Once again across Kansas City. However, wildfire smoke that continues to just kind of hang around the middle of the country, it's really setting up for a nice sunrise out there. Very red sun in all of that wildfire smoke as we look out towards the east along 31st Street. Once again across Kansas City. However, wildfire smoke that continues to just kind of hang around the middle of the country, it's really setting up for a nice sunrise out there. Very red sun in all of that wildfire smoke as we look out towards the east.
Keep on trying to go.
Owe more than £6,000 in debt and only able to make those minimum payments.
Good afternoon, Alaska. And
I mean, this is just a huge I mean, it is. If you get to Hurricane Aaron, there's actually 2 Hurricane Aarons that hit. Red dust and some kind of aerosols deployed over Illinois. You can see these 2 crisscrossing lines. We're right over the center of Illinois. Anyway, watch this thing. I mean, this is just a huge I mean, it is. If you get to Hurricane Aaron, there's actually 2 Hurricane Aarons that hit. One hit. Excellent connection. I don't know what to think. I'm just going to keep on trying to go and see if it'll go. Now people's got black screen. Okay, now it's going back to crap. Man, they're really shutting down some stuff here. I'm trying to see if it'll clear up. Man, it's just a steady, constant buffer. Anyway, I'll just keep going. And like I said, if it's that bad, we'll upload it to one of the channels. We got unexplained lights during an earthquake, have Mexicans wondering if the apocalypse is coming. You know, when I seen this footage, the first thing I thought it was Transformers. Blowing. That's what it looks like. Yeah, that still looks like Transformers. There's one footage on here, though, that maybe it's this one. Maybe it's the video's gone. It looked like beams coming down. Oh, where'd that footage go? Anyway, some people call these earthquake lightning, but what I see, they look like lasers coming down through the clouds. I don't know why it's not. It's like it's not there now. That's not the right. Where the heck did that video go?
So if you want to go and check out this video, I'll keep it short. It's like for me.
I'm not seeing it. Wasn't that one? That's weird.
16-day forecast is airborne on YouTube. Weather manipulation video. You just play it on your live. I'll show you what channel to go and watch it on. And then I've got to Discord it again.
Finish getting the broadcaster up here. There we go.
Mike.
They sent this wave of fire, smoke, Sahara dust, and some kind of aerosols deployed over Illinois.
So that's the one to go. So, here we go. I'm still monitor my channel, don't I? The intent is just cause physical harm, and they don't belong. No Christian remedy in law. 15 minutes ago.
The level we're dealing with here now on what we see on the screen here, or on the board here, is God's people have no legal rights because they come from what is natural. Legal rights are defined as those not, so natural rights are those not dependent on the laws or the customs of this humanistic system that is created, that is there for what we call legal rights. Legal rights are bestowed on a person by a legal system. So it has nothing to do with God. God does not bestow legal rights. Man's world of imagination bestows legal rights. And so in that system, you have to carry something to prove that. A tree in nature doesn't have to prove it's a tree. A squirrel doesn't have to prove it's a squirrel. A blade of grass, a dandelion, anything that is in a natural setting doesn't have to prove what it is. It is what it is. It is native, it is real, it is spiritual. But in the sense of the legal, they have to convert the thought into the legal position and therefore get you to start to believe down the imagination, so you'll adopt that thought. And therefore, instead of being on a quest for truth, you're on a request for fiction. So you request to be re-known as something that you weren't. You don't need a license to be yourself. You need a license to impersonate the concept or the misconception, the miscarriage of thought of someone who's away from God, and therefore dead, not living, because anything away from the natural system of God is dead. It cannot live. And that's why the world we live in right now is so much on a direction of suicide and direction away from what is spiritual, that it's willing to kill off its own membership base because it's balancing things in a logistic realm, not in a reasonable or something that has to do with conscience realm. God gave us conscience, not logic. Logic belongs to a world of legalists, humanists. These are not spiritual people, and they have to get you to carry a document to prove that you are that, because there's no existence of it otherwise. So if you don't show this, a birth certificate, you don't surety it, that you have no existence in it. Interestingly, it is in a reverse order of the dead. It represents the dead, and there represents corpus or dead, as the Canadian government dictates a definition for legal person. It says that the only legal person known to their law is the body corporate of the body corpus. That's a dead body. So when you deal with using something and you speak for it, you speak for the corporate dead, the corpus dead, the dead body. Something that's legal has no salvation, opposite to grace, opposite to what is natural. You end up with a situation that you speak for the dead. And that's called corporation. So corporation is basically, oration means to speak, to orate, and corpse is the dead. So corporation is dead speaking. Very simple, not hard to understand, but we need to comprehend the fact is that when you're living in the dead world, those without salvation of God, those who are not his property, you have no salvation. And right now, if you're not feeling this, what's going on, you realize it's not God abandoning you. It's you've abandoned God, and you're now part of something that you wish to support. Because, oh, I have so many wonderful things in the world of the dead. I have real estate. I should have a right to vote and put a say in that society. God doesn't need you to vote on what is right. It is what it is. It already exists. He doesn't need you to put your stamp of approval on it. So we've begun to, or have started, brought down a level of thought that's not coherent to spiritual reason. We've been brought down a direction of complete insane thought, which is that somehow the Creator has to basically support us in our thought pattern as the creation. And so the creation has got out of hand, and now it's in recreation of thought, imagination, and the Creator basically has left us to, unfortunately, the realm of that to provide us a learning experience of what can happen when you put your trust in those that promote something away from his harmony of thought. So we're in a battle between true understanding and false understanding, but you're either consenting to refrain from doing something that is bad, or you're consenting to participate in something what is bad. And you have that placed in you by God. So it appears there's about maybe less than 10 or 20% of the population right now showing up, totally disturbed by what they see going on right now. Is that going to be the total wake up that's there that will follow through right to the end? I don't know. I can't say. I just say that the logistics, if you're going to take it down the logistic end, the majority of these people are still involved in the world of make-believe, and they may make a very bad choice, a poor choice. They may actually put what they believe to be their make-believe monetary existence above their actual existence naturally, because they believe there's no other way to go. But if someone's offering you poison right now and saying this is the only way to live, would you take that poison? Would you be even questioning whether or not it'd be best not to take the poison? If you're in a burning house and the house is burning down, the premise of the thought, of where you thought your life was under a surname, a house, a premise of thought. If that house is burning down, would you remain in that house trying to gather your last bit of your possessions? Or would you just be trying to get outside of that house and leave that house, divorced from that house that's burning? And right now, the majority are sending me most of the emails about how do I remain in that house, benefit from that house, stay in the burning house, and still have salvation. And I can't answer that with anything other than, are you out of your head? It's not going to happen. You can't be in both places. So you're either going to choose spiritual and you're going to walk down a spiritual path and come out, or you're going to stay in. And to stay in is going to have a price tag with it. So it will definitely lead those down to disaster who have actually placed a value on their lives instead of placing what is invaluable, because life is invaluable, it's priceless. Systems of this humanistic system that is created, that is there for what we call legal rights. Legal rights are bestowed on a person by a legal system. So it has nothing to do with God. God does not bestow legal rights. Man's world of imagination bestows legal rights. And so in that system, you have to carry something to prove that. A tree in nature doesn't have to prove it's a tree. A squirrel doesn't have to prove it's a squirrel. A blade of grass, a dandelion, anything that is in a natural setting doesn't have to prove what it is. It is what it is. It is native, it is real, it is spiritual. But in the sense of the legal, they have to convert the thought into the legal position and therefore get you to start to believe down the imagination, so you'll adopt that thought. And therefore, instead of being on a quest for truth, you're on a request for fiction. So you request to be re-known as something that you weren't. You don't need a license to be yourself. You need a license to impersonate the concept or the misconception, the miscarriage of thought of someone who's away from God. And therefore dead, not living, because anything away from the natural system of God is dead. It cannot live. And that's why the world we live in right now is so much on a direction of suicide and direction away from what is spiritual, that it's willing to kill off its own membership base, because it's balancing things in a logistic realm, not in a reasonable or something that has to do with conscience realm. Okay. God gave us conscience, not logic. Logic belongs to a world of legalists, humanists. These are not spiritual people, and they have to get you to carry a document to prove that you are that, because there's no existence of it otherwise. So if you don't show this, a birth certificate, you don't surety it, that you have no existence in it. Interestingly, it is in a reverse order of the dead. It represents the dead, and there represents corpus or dead, as the Canadian government dictates a definition for legal person. It says that the only legal person known to their law is the body corporate, of the body corpus. That's a dead body. So when you deal with using something and you speak for it, you speak for the corporate dead, the corpus dead, the dead body. Something that's legal has no salvation, opposite to grace, opposite to what is natural. You end up with a situation that you speak for the dead, and that's called corporation. So corporation is basically, oration means to speak, to orate, and corpse is the dead. So corporation is dead speaking. Very simple. Not hard to understand, but we need to comprehend the fact is that when you're living in the dead world, those without salvation of God, those who are not his property, you have no salvation. And right now, if you're not feeling this, what's going on, you realize it's not God abandoning you. It's you've abandoned God and you're now part of something that you wish to support. Because, oh, I have so many wonderful things in the world of the dead. I have real estate. I should have a right to vote and put a say in that society. God doesn't need you to vote on what is right. It is what it is. It already exists. He doesn't need you to put your stamp of approval on it. So we begin to, or have started to be brought down a level of thought that's not coherent to spiritual reason. We've been brought down a direction of complete insane thought, which is that somehow the Creator has to basically support us in our thought pattern as the creation. And so the creation has got out of hand, and now it's in recreation of thought, imagination, and the Creator basically has left us to
With Dropbox, your content, tools, and team members are always just a click away. You can.
We're doing this as just a clarification to the previous video, just so your mind is on track to the facts sitting in front of you. Now, about language, I'm breaking it down simply that you can see the two sides that are going on. These are just some opposites, but they become these tricking words that are used on the legal system by lawyers who, of course, are going to promote a system that they benefit from. So when we're talking about law in its pure sense, we're talking about the law that comes from God. When we're talking about legal, we're talking about the father of the lie, Satan. He's an inventor, not a creator. That's where you get this word invent. It's not a good word, invent, when used really in the even in the context of legal. It's to deceive. It's a contrivance, an artifice being used to take advantage of somebody. So when we're looking at these words, we got to be careful because these are spells. There's good spells and bad spells. Satan's side's based on a bad spell that's always hanging over your head. In the world of truth, you're dealing with a spiritual good use of words, and therefore, when we break these down, we're going to get a better understanding. So when we go across, we've got, of course, law with God. We've got legal with Satan, the father of the lie. We know God is the creator. He's the one of truth. We know that everything really is good and has credit. There is no debt. But in the world of legal, because it's working with a debtor system that requires people to continue with no hope, only dealing with sin and debt, that's why they, of course, would have to have a name, of course, that would be used in fiction. And truth, which would be a surname, a last name, or a family name that's dealing with connotations that people have not really researched, because the unwary would not realize surname comes from agnomination or agnomen, a debt or a debtor. A last name or last is a burden spoken of in law. To do a little bit of research, and of course, when they're talking about family, they're talking about stock. So once you're in this, you're part of the stockade. Then you, of course, your given name, of course, is on the truthful side. It's a fact. It's a given. But then and it's also spiritual, opposite to where the lawyers will talk about things of fact, but it's really factitious in their world. It's not really a fact. And then, of course, you're dealing with the corporate idea or the corpus, a dead body, because you're considered to be dead, not the living. So we have to kind of look at this and just take a step back sometimes and realize that we may not have seen these things, and it takes time to absorb it And why a lot of the videos are repetitive, it's because people are skipping over things and they're jumping back into the legal so quickly because they believe that there's no other way. But the only way this can work is based on your lack of knowledge. So you have to retrain your mind to get out of that fictional world that is being definitely run by the lawyers. It's interesting that the word on their side, what we talk about corpus or corporation, it's got an interesting meaning. Assumption of a body, incarnation. They're dealing with a material world that's based on selfishness, about greed, about wealth, about things that are made up. We know that money doesn't grow on trees, but certainly money seems to be the drug and represents that in the wealth. But when I saw that corporation, an assumption of a body, incarnation, as you've probably seen in previous videos, I seem to break these things down, and I realize that's really an interesting concept in today's modern world. That term, assumption of a body, incarnation, and everybody's driving a car that's part of these nations, that are part of the I-Magi nation, so of men. So it is in the words. Everything is in the words. These words have messages. There's letters in them. You were not taught this. So remember, a letter has a meaning. It has a message. But unfortunately, because of lack of knowledge, no one went to the rudiment of what we're talking about here to go right into these words to find out what they mean. And because of that, they've been easily tripped up and driven into a realm of a prison in their own mind based on spells that they don't comprehend the meaning to. So we got to take the time. It requires the time to do that. Certainly anything I've written down or anything that I've researched didn't happen by chance. It happened because of just going there and simply looking at the words and finding out what the meanings are, and certainly you can do the same thing. So hopefully this video is giving you some insight.
I recently got on the front page of Forbes magazine as one of the top currency trader coaches in the world.
Where Peter's house served as headquarters. The overriding theme of Jesus was that the kingdom of God on earth, long foretold by the prophets of Israel, was dawning at last.
What he's talking about is that God's rule should affect our lives, that God's way of doing things is the way we should be living, rather than doing business as usual, rather than treating people as we normally do.
In Capernaum, Jesus began to cure people with seemingly incurable illnesses, and even restored a dead girl to life. The home of Peter and his wife Perpetua became a hotel, an auditorium, and a hospital visited by people with all sorts of diseases. They came to be healed and to hear the wonder worker from Nazareth. Soon Jesus had many disciples.
He had word of mouth in a time when there was no CNN, no internet, no Oprah show to go on and become famous in overnight or for 15 minutes. Jesus could attract extraordinary numbers of people. Certainly his ability to work wonders, to do miracles, perform miracles was part of it, but then it must have ultimately come down to his being an extraordinary personality.
From the disciples, Jesus singled out 12 apostles who would carry his message to far-reaching places.
In secular Greek, the word apostle can simply mean a representative, an emissary, almost like an ambassador. In the New Testament, the word apostle outside of the Gospels almost is equivalent to the word missionary, someone who represents the gospel in an itinerant way, but a very special class. Disciple always means a follower of Jesus and can include a much larger group than the small group of apostles.
The number of apostles Jesus chose held special significance.
Early Christianity wants to set up a kind of epic story of itself as the new Israel.
And so as there were 12 tribes of Israel, so you have 12 apostles who were sent out. 11 of the apostles were from the kingdom of Galilee. It was a rural area, largely of farmers and fishermen, who, like Jesus, were mainly poor and without any formal education. In building a popular movement, Jesus drew mostly from this crowd.
They weren't powerful. They were average people. And it spoke to the notion that the meek shall inherit the earth.
I think he chose them because they were not professional theologians, because they didn't have any theological preconceptions. He wanted men that were teachable.
Among the first apostles of Jesus was the fisherman Peter. He was a natural leader, although initially his faith would prove superficial. But Peter ultimately enjoyed a special relationship with Jesus. Andrew was Peter's amiable brother and fishing partner. A devout Jew, he had yearned for the coming of the Messiah for years. Brothers James and John were middle-class fishermen and may have been cousins of Jesus. Along with Peter, they were close to Jesus, especially John.
He was thought to have been the beloved disciple, especially close to Jesus, and to have had a very high vision of Jesus' divinity.
Philip and Bartholomew were good friends and followers of John the Baptist. Thomas was a poor fisherman, something of a skeptic. To him, seeing was believing. James the Less was so called because he was younger or shorter than John's brother James. Simon was a Roman-hating zealot. Jude Thaddeus was perhaps a nephew of Mary, the mother of Jesus.
About Andrew, Bartholomew, Jude, Thaddeus, James the Lesser, no distinct profiles emerge. They teach Orthodox teaching, they do miracles, they convert people in their field of mission.
Matthew was a Roman collaborating tax collector. By accepting Matthew, a traitor to his own people, Jesus made it clear that he would not reject any Jew who chose to seek salvation by accepting his message. The 12th apostle, Judas Iscariot, was the only Judean among the group. He was committed to the expulsion of the Romans from Israel and thought Jesus would help. Over time, Judas would become deeply disappointed in Jesus. They may have been average nobodies, but the events surrounding these 12 men and their leader in a far-flung corner of the Roman Empire would change history.
With the University of London, you can now earn your BSc online from wherever you are. Choose from
From the years 27 to 30, the apostles wandered with Jesus throughout Israel in a kind of traveling seminary. During this brief period, their faith and their notion of the Messiah were radically changed by Jesus' teachings and miracles. The apostles saw him heal the sick, paralyzed, and insane. Turn water into wine. Feed a crowd of thousands with a bit of fish and bread. And bring a friend, Lazarus, back from the dead.
I think the apostles were amazed when they saw what Jesus did. They, of course, had stories about miracles in the Old Testament, but they had not seen anything quite like this, or heard of anything quite like this. I think they were blown away by what he did.
Jesus performed signs and wonders to give some authority to what he was doing in relationship to the apostles, to show them what they were then going to go out and do, the things that I do.
I got one of them sound like they're Asian. I don't even know. Actually, crazy as fuck, bro. Using a frequency. See, that's what it looks like on the ground. So it's probably best, safer to ground yourself, obviously. I'm gonna see if I can get some things to put on the bottom of my shoes to ground myself at all times. But sitting inside of my car, it's right in front of me.
You say you a Christian, I respect Salakia. Find my tribe in Nigeria, they call it Gospel of Christ, who is the most I told me follow him. A sinner, I was wicked, but I followed him. I never thought that
Both very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, over the last few months, Newsnight has been examining the many reasons which explain why the UK has such high rates of infant and child mortality as part of our series Young Lives Lost. Tonight, an investigation by this programme exposes the worry of many parents of disabled children that inappropriate housing is having a negative impact on their health. Over 40% of parents who took part in the poll of 4,000 families said their home didn't meet their child's needs. Some said they struggled to even get their children in and out of the property. 27% said they believed their home worsened their child's condition or even put them at risk. Our health correspondent Deb Cohen has this report.
Over 2 days in Cheetham Hill, Manchester, volunteers for the charity Wellchild transformed this garden with new plants, decking and an accessible pathway. The work won't just make it look nicer, it will open up a new world for the 16-year-old boy who lives here, Anderson.
He's 24 hours care, he's totally dependent, to others. He can't talk, he can't work, and and he needs somebody, all the time, on his side, all the time. Have to keep an eye on him,
Until 2019, Anderson was at a local school and playing basketball in his spare time. But then an accident at a go-karting track caused a head injury that changed everything.
We brought him quickly in emergency, and they found I had a quickly scan, and they found out that he's having hemorrhage. Yes, and it was a very big one that, in spite that we came very earlier, but it was too late, to avoid that, brain damage.
Anderson's injuries meant he needed a wheelchair and space for lots of medical kit. The privately rented home that Batil and Anderson had previously lived in wasn't suitable, so they had to move. Anderson spent more than a year in hospital before the council found an accessible property.
It's not a lot of house, full accessibility, and it wasn't easy to find the house. And here it's very, thank God for this house, we got, at least I've got a place, with Anderson.
Delayed hospital discharges cost the NHS about £285 million per year, and the evidence suggests that up to 14% of these delayed discharges can be reduced by accessible housing. Local authority money is available to make improvements to properties, but even still, Wellchild has over 700 families waiting for help. 90% come from social housing. Tara Parker, a paediatric nurse who also works with Wellchild, says their research shows Anderson's experience isn't that unusual.
Some young people will be delayed in an intensive care unit for approximately 12 months, and the cost of that is eye-watering. You could have bought and built them 3 houses by the time you've done that. And while I recognise there's a shortage of housing stock, this is not an enormous amount of people. This is a very niche amount of young people, but still running into the thousands that live in the UK and are some of our most vulnerable.
Manchester City Council told us Betty Schweeper and her son were rehoused by the City Council into their current bungalow property in 2019, which was subsequently adapted extensively. Occupational therapists searched for some months to find an appropriate home due to the size of the wheelchair in question. The supply of housing is a big issue. Just over 10
Mainstream media going on kids. Yes, right. So all about adults. This is an accessible place, which they're refusing to repair. And if it did have played a job right, sort gaslight and carpentry since 2017, it would have been sorted out. Yeah. There would be, yeah.
10% of people in the UK have a disability affecting their mobility, but just 9% of homes in England have key accessibility features, including level access to the entrance, a toilet at entrance level.
Yeah, it's meant to be accessible, but as I said, this national UK company refuses to unlawfully repair my own. And I'm not going to just move out. And nowhere else to move to. So why are they now putting on mainstream media about kids in accessible places as adults are struggling too?
And sufficiently wide corridors. It's not surprising then that the average waiting time for social housing tenants is over 2.
And correction, this BS assumption. Occupation therapists do not do anything with housing. They don't go with people to look at new places. You can't just go and look at new offers. And now you're going to get one offer. If you don't take that, that's it. So comments. Convert all the royal family places to affordable housing exactly. When you have the BBC covers this, but don't bring up how many people from Afghanistan are in the country and how this will impact more of our housing as well. When is Prince Harry going to go on trial? This is inadequate housing for most disabled people. Exactly. BBC pretending they care. Yeah. Woman in dress covers her left thumb with her right thumb, harassing me with, my goodness, plenty of housing for migrants. America committed war crimes in Afghanistan, Vietnam, but they still represent themselves as heroes. Why are they cutting them off?
Years.
Where's your sock gone? You've only got one sock on.
Princess Belle is living in temporary accommodation in South London with her 13-year-old son, 11-year-old daughter and a baby. The eldest 2 children both have a rare genetic condition that means they are unable to walk or speak and have breathing problems.
So this is pretty much where all of their equipment is stored. And this is I actually also rent a storage unit, which is a large garage size storage unit.
The 4 of them have been living in this 3-bedroom house for 8 months while they wait for the council to find them a new home. Every inch of each room is packed with clothes, toys and specialist equipment.
The odd times they have offered us properties in Kent, it's like, okay, well, this one's in Kent, it's where you wanted. but it doesn't have the space we need. You've offered us a 3-bedroom property. Where am I supposed to keep all of their stuff? They've got the children's occupational therapy report. It says that they need double rooms because they have large equipment, that they're growing children, their equipment's only going to get larger.
The difficulties faced by Princess and her children are shared by other families in the UK. New figures from the disabled children's charity Contact, shared exclusively with Newsnight, show that 41% say their home doesn't meet the child's needs, while 27% said they felt their home makes their child's condition worse or puts them at risk.
With the damp that's in the current property, it's been proven, and Lambeth themselves, from their own surveyor, deemed this property unsuitable nearly 8 months ago in January. We were told that we needed to be moved. For children like mine, it's a big deal, like a bit of mold. But for my children, it can be life-threatening, because a pneumonia caused by the mold can then cause my daughter in intensive care, have to be on ventilators.
Amanda Batten runs the charity Contact that carried out the survey.
We were really taken back by the proportion of families who weren't only saying that the housing was unsuitable, but that their home environment was actually having a negative effect on their child's disability. I think that there's no doubt that poor and inappropriate housing is having a hugely detrimental impact on the health and the lives of many disabled children and their families.
When we asked Lambeth Council about Princess's case, they told us this household has very complex housing medical needs, which we have been working hard to meet for some time, and we apologise for the delays in resolving this issue. However, we face a real shortage of available homes. Newsnight has been investigating the reasons behind the deaths of young people using evidence generated by the country's first ever national database of child deaths, which was published in May this year. Poor housing was identified as a contributing factor. In 2016, Molly Wells' son Harley was born with a brain injury and cerebral palsy. Molly, who lives in Ipswich, was only 17 at the time.
He needed round-the-clock care. He couldn't walk, talk, he couldn't sit up. He was fed via a peg tube, which would be in his stomach all the time. He needed all of his hygiene done. He couldn't do anything himself, as in nothing. He could lay on the floor and just kick around. That's all he could do by himself.
And did you have to do a lot of his care then for him?
I did all of his care. I did everything apart from when he went to school.
In 2017, Harley and Molly had to move after her private landlord gave her notice. The council found them a flat, but there was a problem.
What we can see here is these are the steps that lead to the property. When Molly moved into this property, they said that they would be able to put in a ramp to be able Harley in his wheelchair to go up these steps, but unfortunately that never happened. So what
Jackie Wood is a nurse working in Ipswich who has visited Molly at the property.
And as we go through the entrance here, we can see that this isn't really suitable for a wheelchair.
I had to carry Harley through the property. I had to lift him everywhere. I had to do ground lifts. I had to do everything because he had no equipment.
So you had a care plan. So that meant you couldn't follow what the medical advice you were given about how to care for Harley.
Yeah, correct. I couldn't follow anything. Physiotherapies, requests and stuff like that. I couldn't follow because I couldn't have the equipment which was needed in the property. He couldn't do physio, which possibly could have strengthened his legs, his back, his posture. He couldn't do any of that.
And what did you try to do to resolve your housing situation?
I got Harley's paediatrics doctor, physiotherapists. They wrote letters, supporting letters, to say that Harley needed, as a matter of urgency, he needed to be housed correctly. They said that they'd look into it, and it went on for 2.5 years.
In October 2019, Harley died unexpectedly. Jackie worked with Molly to support her and also carried out a review of his death, which fed into the National Child Mortality Report.
What kind of role do you think housing played in you know, the death of Harley?
The fact that, you know, he had to be carried throughout that property, whereas in his care plan was for him to be in a wheelchair and to be hoisted, and the pressure that maybe that had on his body. And I think it's really about asking that question, that does that then affect kind of life expectancy and mortality? What's just really sad, and when we did the review, the themes that kind of came up in Harley's reviews, actually we've gone on to see them in multiple other cases, so it really isn't an isolated incident.
He wasn't given a chance. I had to do the best I could for Harley in a rubbish situation, if that makes sense.
Ipswich Borough Council told us it provided the best accommodation we could for Harley Bow Wells, but it was acknowledged by all that the property did not meet all of Harley's needs. We have a large shortfall of suitable adapted property to meet demand. We were building a specifically adapted bungalow for the family when, sadly, Harley died. The government has run a consultation on improving access to accessible housing, with a report due out in December. Campaigners say this is a vital opportunity to improve standards and potentially transform the lives of some of our most vulnerable children.
I think there is a window of opportunity now with the government's accessible housing review. Clearly, where we're building new houses, they need to be fit for the current and future needs of the population in the UK. But
place that they pulled over and pulled a brick out, G-Rock, to match my knife. Meanwhile, I'm just a woman, but you got to do all that. He went, it's like they knew, and I think this is a play off of the Freemasons and the brick. I don't really know, but he got a brick and he ran back on the bus and he said, bitch, I'll kill you. I will kill you. And like the brick on me. So you know what I did? I just stood there. And I just started praying in my head because I wasn't going to run because he wasn't going to hit me in the back of my head with that brick. And I'm just standing there like in shock. It's grown men on the bus, big men that could have intervened. Nobody intervened or nothing though. Nobody intervened. He could have just, killed me with that brick. Like he had it and he was right there. So I'm just standing there and I'm like, well, I got my knife. I'm like, if he gonna do it, he gonna do it right in my face. And I'm looking at the brick. I'm looking right at the brick, and I thought to myself, well,
all right, definitely, man. We're gonna go up. We're gonna go up today. We got some things we're gonna be talking about. But appreciate the much of the love on the last video, on the last live stream, man. Hopefully that was edifying for y'all that watched it. You know what I mean? I went back and watched it myself, and it was a pretty deep live. You know what I mean? Definitely touch a lot of bases on different things like that. So, if you don't know how to come into the live, what you do is you just click the link, and then you just bring it up on your internet browser, and then you'll be backstage, and then I'll be able to bring you on like that. Let's see, we got one page. Let's see who this is real quick. All right, we got April Houghton coming on. So I'm gonna add her to the stream real quick. Shalom. What's up, April?
Shalom, G-Rock. Shalom. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm blessed. I'm blessed to see another day. It's rough out here for us, but we made it through. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm a little nervous. I've never ever called in. I've been wanting to call into Newbreed show, but I've never done this before. So I'm a little nervous, but my son was even attacked. But that's another story for another day. But let's just say he won, and they were surprised. But I'm going to learn that. I'm also going to invest in a mace gun, because if I had a mace gun, just took him on the spot.